first of all, yes, in case some of you know me, some of you don't, and things evolve anyway, so I'll tell you that I grew up on Long Island, was Roman Catholic, went to Regis here in this city at Manhattan with the Jesuits as in high school, and then I entered the Jesuits myself right out of high school, where I was with them for 5 years, during which time I went to Fordham in philosophy and classical languages, my field. But from there, right after I graduated from college, I entered the Carthusian order, which is an order founded in the 11th century by St. Bruno, a hermit order. So for 22 years after that, I was in the order, 12 years in Vermont, and 7 years at the Grand Chartreuse in Francis, our mother house. If you've seen the documentary Into Great Silence, which came out 7 years ago, still get it. That's the house I lived in, where I was also in charge of making the chartreuse liqueur. Nice job. And then 3 more years after that in England. So 22 years in all. That's already 20 years ago this spring. I came back to the city and wanted to work. Well, quickly it turned out I was able to work as a parish priest, and so I've been doing that. First at St. Joseph's in the village, where I became involved in gay ministry there, obviously, and established Contact with Savior, and so I've been working in gay ministry, officially, unofficially. We have an ad hoc committee which was formed 10 years ago for Brooklyn, New York, and now expanded to Connecticut, New Jersey, and upstate. Ad hoc committee. It's not official, but it's a group that's stable, consistent. In fact, one of the larger meetings of the Inter-Parish Collaborative, as we call it, is happening today, which is why. One reason is there are fewer people here. But along with that, I did regular parish work. 7 years in the Bronx. After that, 8 years at St. Joseph's, and then. I lived in 2009, I became a priest of the Archdiocese, and moved in with Cardinal Eden when he retired. He asked me to do that, which was very interesting. Lived with him for 2 years, and it was a very good experience. And then I was sent up to Columbia, at Notre Dame, right by Columbia University in St. Luke's Hospital, where I am now. When I came back to the city, I rejoined or reestablished contact with my good friend back from college. He was my teacher already back then, before Father Robert E. Kennedy, S.J., and he taught Eastern religions, and he became a sensei and later a Roshi in the Zen tradition. So I reestablished contact with him, began sitting Zen, which I knew I wanted to do. One of the reasons I left the monastery, to expand my contemplative circle, contemplative perspective. And again, in 2009, the year I became a priest of the Archdiocese, I also became a sensei in the Zen tradition. So I'm a Zen teacher. I have my own contemplative prayer group at the parish, centering prayer, and I have my own Dragon's Eye Zendo, I call it, which meets at St. Francis of Assisi, right by Penn Station, on Thursdays, where I do Zen. So that kind of global spirituality is part of what I'll be talking about today, as you know, bringing these two themes together. Now, Judy, my good friend and associate and parish trustee and techie, is going to has been filming recording a lot of my stuff here. It'll just be me, and so your confidentiality is guaranteed. If during the question period, and again, it's what cameras on me, even during the question period, if for some reason you don't want your questions recorded, you can let me know. We'll delete that from the final film. Also, in a group like this, which is not unwieldy but numerous, and we spend a whole day together, I like to start, just by going around and if you want to, that won't be recorded obviously. If you want to introduce yourself, whatever you want to say, I am from, and if you can, a few words, a sentence, why you're here, what you'd like to see covered, what you hope to learn from today, or what interests you about today, so that I don't leave something like that out, and make sure I respond to the expectations of everybody here. It's good to see that there are, well, we're an older group mainly, but there are some younger people here, and we're mainly a male group, and I'm glad to see not exclusively. You know, the older guys tend to give me a harder time. So I was giving a talk on gay spirituality a few months ago at a parish in Manhattan that had started a gay group and on gay spirituality, and they, at least one guy especially, was really resisting. So I don't mind that if you want to protest or anything I have to say. But on the other hand, I hope it also can be open to explore. Because, well, I'll give you more of an introduction after I hear everyone speak. Who wants to, you can pass if you want. But as I say, it'll give me and all of us here, all of us who are gathered today in fellowship, a better idea of what we want to focus on. So maybe we'll start that way.
Okay. Hi, I'm Keith Bishop, and I'm with St. Paul's Chapter.
So yes, we're here talking today about spirituality, and specifically gay spirituality and global spirituality. I suggest we'll talk especially about gay spirituality this morning, and you'll already see glimmers of how it can be and should be a global spirituality. And we'll talk mainly about global spirituality this afternoon, and you'll see, I hope already from this morning's talk, how gay often fits into that. And we'll do some exercises, some contemplative exercises as well in various traditions to enable us to move forward on the journey. So it's not going to be specifically about being gay and Catholic, although that may be a primary preoccupation of those who are here today. But I hope what I'm hearing and what I wanted to do in any case was to bring the two together, spirituality, precisely through spirituality, as we were just hearing. In other words, for example, I gave a conference a few years ago to One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. There were a lot of disaffected people from outside, from mainstream traditions, and many of them gay. I gave a talk, basic talk about Catholicism. My whole point there, my whole point here today and in general, is that we have to stop focusing, whether it's on me or those who are in charge. And this is something Pope Francis is saying. We have to stop focusing on these hot-button issues as if they were the central message of the gospel. You know, hot-button social issues that you can name for yourself. And then contrasting that, with whatever, being gay, for example, and identifying that exclusively with, sexual preference or sexual activity. That's what the Church constantly does. If we look deeper into both and see what can we learn about spirituality, what can we find out about spirituality from the gay experience and from the Catholic experience, and focus on that, well, then maybe we can start finding areas not only where the two can converge and come together and talk to each other, but where they can actually find an identity, find something where we meet on a deeper level. So it'll help us, whether you're talking about being gay or being Catholic or any religion, to go deeper into the essence, the deeper reality of what it is spiritually, and then find that things come together, which is what, in fact, global spirituality is all about. And it makes me a little nervous and excited at the same time because there's so little written about this. There's so little preached about this, certainly. Even if you go into a church, you're generally not going to hear mystical talk, which is what we should be talking about. If religion is not about, union with God and with one another and dealing with your pain, as Richard Rohr says, religion should be about dealing with your pain. Well, then what are we doing? we're just trying to feel good about ourselves because we like a Pharisee who does the right things at the right time and belongs to the right group and believes the right things and goes to the right heaven? Or is it more? Is it something deeper? And similarly with the gay experience, what are the spiritual aspects of that can heal and bring hope? So it's a little bit pioneering work. One book I'm referring to a lot is called, and I'll give out a bibliography later, is Coming Out Spiritually, the next step, which is by Christian de la Huerta, whom I had met many years ago, and he's still around doing retreat work, if you want more to Google him. This book is already 7 years old, goes back to 99. But he presents, a good introduction on the various archetypes that you might say that gay people represent, and then speaks more about actual spiritual practices and different choices people can make for a spiritual path. But I do want to focus on some of those archetypes, just to get a sense of their spiritual meaning and what they can mean for us. And this also goes back to a presentation I made literally almost 20 years ago at Xavier. I think it was the first talk I gave there, one of many, where I said, what are the marks of gay spirituality, specifically for Catholics, in the gay experience? And I would say one of the great virtues of religious people, or should be religious people, so not always the case with all the hypocrisy that's been rampant for centuries in all tradition, and one that gay people should be good at, have a special challenge, is honesty, and not to deny it, facing the truth, seeing things as they are. Now, I think when we speak about spirituality, one thing I want to make clear is we're not, in the end, spirituality is a path. In a sense, there really is just one path of being truly spiritual. I don't care what your sexuality is, what your religion is, what your life experience is, and we'll make that clear, especially this afternoon. There really is just one path, authentic spirituality. So we're trying to see how all this fits together. And I think honesty and truthfulness and clarity about seeing things as they are, which is already contemplation, which is already mystical vision. Truly seeing things as they are. It's a lot harder than you think. We'll do little exercises on that. A little exercise on that in a minute. This has to be foundational. So I think, generally, when I speak about gay spirituality, so I mean just spirituality, but aspects of which gay people might have a head start on, or a special talent for, or a special challenge to face. So it's not that there's like a gay spirituality, but there's spirituality which gay people can enter into, or almost forced sometimes to enter into because of this particular challenge. So when it comes to being honest, have honesty and truthfulness and integrity, not being hypocritical or denying reality, well, gay people have a special challenge and a special call to do that because of who they are. Because facing it, being honest about who you are, is really hard. In the beginning, at least, maybe always, for gay people. And I'm using the word gay, by the way, I'm not just talking about homosexuals. I read an article, I think it was, I saw something online or in the Times just this past week. I think it was the Times, yeah, the Sunday Review, that said, homosexual is almost now like the N-word. It's almost insulting to refer to gay people as homosexual. It's interesting, because it's so clinical and it can be so kind of reducing people to a word that they don't really identify with anymore. So, as Pope Francis himself even used the word, I think it's time to do that. So, facing the fact that you're gay requires a tremendous amount of honesty and clarity and courage. And that gives you the possibility of doing that in the rest of your life. And in the world, as a witness in the world, to that kind of honesty and truth about who you are and the way things That fits in with a couple of the archetypes, actually, that Christian mentions. We're outsiders mirroring society, he says. So gay people always find, they're a minority, something which Andrew Sullivan calls virtually normal, in the sense it's a normal way of being human for a minority of the population. So you're not outside of, reality in that sense. But it's virtual, and it's virtually normal because it's a minority position. But it's, so outsiders in that sense. They never have, it's changing now, of course, with gay marriage and gay adoption, but you won't live the kind of human life that's expected, that's approved, that's normal for the majority. So outsiders mirroring society, and therefore, if you want to speak in religious terms, Judeo-Christian terms, exercising a prophetic mission of speaking out, not just for honesty and truth and integrity, but for the outsider, all the other outsiders that are encountered. Gay people have a head start in religious and social and psychological terms at standing up for the outsider. And somebody, I think, what's his name? Jesus. Didn't Jesus do that? I think Jesus was kind of known for that, as scholars have pointed out more so in recent centuries than in the past. Standing up for women, standing up for the sinner, for the outsider, for the socially unacceptable, the tax collectors and the prostitutes that he was criticized for having dinner with and hanging out with, the Samaritans, the lepers, you name it. He's always putting the outsider, the good Samaritan, the Samaritan who's a leper, those who were socially and religiously rejected, the unclean, all of that. He's constantly breaking those rules, which is why he got into trouble. One of the reasons he got into trouble. So religion is always going to be somehow, if we take the example, if we take the cue from the great religious leaders, founders, and certainly Jesus, it's always going to be about inclusivity for the one who is different, who is on the outside. So that everything belongs, to use a phrase of Richard Rohr, and that's what contemplation will show us all. Also, true contemplation, seeing things as they are, will always mean you include what you see. True contemplation means that you see things as they are, and as a direct result of that experience, and nothing theoretical about it, you know that everything is included. But you see that it might, at first glance, because of certain other prejudices you may have, or blindness, or formative categories you may have, a priori's, once all that drops away, which it doesn't in contemplation in any tradition, whether Buddhist, Christian, otherwise, seeing things as they are means that they will be included, means that the outsider is welcome, means that it's a hard reality, that it's, reality is a wondrous diversity. And those who are, or seem to be not worthy from some societal point of view, or some ego-serving structures or standards, all of that comes. So those are included. Those are included. So they're mirroring society. That's why in the other category here, being catalytic transformers, a taste for revolution. You can talk about revolution or evolution, or working within the system or outside the system, and gay people have done both. Working inside or outside the system in different ways, and maybe they're just different callings. To bring about change. To bring about change where the outsider is not. Certainly in our own ministry, on the committee, we were always, we're primarily about welcoming, as the Vatican document, always our children said. This came from the American bishops originally in 1996. It's about exhorting, whoever quotes that, when you hear that quoted from the pulpit, exhorting, reminding people that gay people should, especially our children, parents, should welcome their children into the parish, into the family, into the community, that they should be included. So any spirituality is authentic to the extent that it's inclusive. Because that's where true spiritual experience and true leads you. Not to mention the teaching of the gospel, the example of Jesus. It's catechetical on a catechetical level, but on the experiential level, it will be inclusive. The gay person is a transformative element of society. And then the third category, the tentative here, fits in also to that. Consciousness scouts, going first and taking risks. People who are on the outside, who have a special energy, which we'll talk more about too, they are pioneers. They break taboos, they break boundaries, they move forward. They're the creative elements of society, and we'll talk more about that. So they're scouts of the human condition. And so it's a wonderful, exciting, and scary vocation. Scary for anybody, but if in society, scary in church, scary in a religious tradition, to be a scout, to take risks, to move forward, which is what Jesus did. Look what happened to him. Well, that's why courage is so important, because you're going to have to face that kind of reaction. So you have to really be rooted in yourself, and as I'll be saying, the only way you can really be rooted in yourself is through personal religious experience and discovering who you are in relation to God and to everyone else. We'll be talking more about that. So honesty, as I say, how will anybody, specifically the gay person, how will they face the reality once, when they are challenging, etc. And here's where I think it's something I said back 20 years ago already. It was just mentioned a moment ago. It's heroic love. When you accept everyone the way they are, when you are witnessing to things as they are, it means that you see also your enemies as belonging, as worthy, as part of the whole, as part of the whole picture, as the recipients of your love. So it's not just your fellow, whoever that might be, your fellow gay person, your fellow male or female, your fellow American, your fellow Republican or Democrat, but precisely everybody. So when it speaks about heroic love, love of your enemies, which Jesus preached more loudly than anything except possibly forgiveness, but nobody ever talks about it because it's too scary. When have we ever, in the Catholic tradition, loved our enemies? Socially, internationally, religiously, that kind of heroic love, I think, again, I'm suggesting that the gay person has a head start on and a special challenge for, because gay people encounter their enemies so quickly and so soon and so rapidly. So how do we react faced with that? And there again, we have the example and teaching of Jesus, and again, hopefully enough, the experience deep enough in our spiritual experience, our contemplative experience, of God's love for us and for everyone, which Jesus preached. If you love only your friends, if you love only your associates, what more are you doing than everybody else? Jesus says. What merit is there in that? You must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, which doesn't mean, never have an impure thought. It means love as He does. Be merciful as your heavenly Father is merciful, in Luke's version. And that wonderful phrase, which I'm always quoting in my homilies, the Father who makes His sun rise on the good and the bad, and His rain come down on the just and the unjust, God Himself, or herself, doesn't make distinctions, even between morally good and morally bad. If He did, we'd be ruined. We'd be done. Because as Paul says, it's precisely when we are His enemies, and happen to be otherwise floundering around in our own confusion, we all start that way, as Paul insists. Even then, or precisely then, God's love loves us, and that's how God's love is proved. That God loves even us, His enemies, transforming us into His friends by that overwhelmingly unimaginable abundance, unmerited of love. And therefore, we have to do the same. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is. So a special challenge, to love, and it's love that transforms the world. It's a love that transforms us, and love that transforms the world. Which means we have to experience it first, which goes back to contemplation. To experience that depth in ourselves. And this is something I said 20 years ago also. There's a whole different vision of power. Nobody should, on a spiritual path, and certainly not gay people, buy into the power play, the power path. And Jesus himself said, you're not going to lord it over the way the Gentiles do, but you're going to serve one another, be slaves of one another. It's the one spiritual path of compassion, love, and service. And that's power. That's the way God exercises power. I mean, right? I mean, how many people say, if God were God and we're all powerful, he'd come and smite the evil and change the world? Well, okay, let's say God is all powerful, but what does that mean? Not human power. Clearly, Christ, naked and helpless on the cross, is God's power and God's wisdom, as Paul says, which is foolishness and weakness, measured by human standards. That's God's power. That's the way God's power works. So much so that people can't even see it. Where's God? Where's his power? Well, just look a little more closely and silently and deeply at the way things are, how they function. Get a contemplative vision, and you'll see God's power everywhere. You'll experience it. There's a respectful, quiet, silent, nothing, drawing down. That's what God's omnipotence means. You show your omnipotence, as the Book of Wisdom says, by having mercy on all things, not the way some insecure potentate has to always be dominating and be in perfect control so that his weakness doesn't show. God is not afraid of that. God's power works quietly. And so must our power, and so must the gay movement work in that way. In other words, non-violence is the only way. And there are a lot of gay people who are saying that one of my favorite, if not my favorite, gay activist and mystic, he's a mystic, that I've heard speak a number of times, is Andrew Harvey. You may have heard of him. He's now, I think he just turned 60. But he's been around for a long time. He grew up in India from British parents, so he had that international, interspiritual thing from the beginning. He's now considers himself a Shivite, Hindu, but with a strong sense of Christianity as well, especially Mary. He's a great activist, and he has a video and also a book called Sacred Activism, part of the bibliography. But he mentions very much this importance of being rooted in our divine identity, in our union with God, but also the rise of compassion and nonviolence is envisioned by Mahatma as one of the great signs of our times in the global spirituality and also of the gay spirituality. Any spirituality, as I say, there's only one spiritual path. And if it's not nonviolent, it's not a spiritual path. Now, this has been hard sometimes for gay people. I mean, the anger has been so strong, and the injustice has been so horrific and so entrenched. You can certainly understand it. And we're not judging that any more than we judge anything. Jesus said not to judge. But I think as we move forward in any spiritual path today, we have to try and root ourselves more deeply in what is that nonviolence of God. I just said God's power is not dominant, exploitative or dominating, but respectful and gentle, drawing us as we're able to understand. So that must be the way the spiritual path is also nonviolent. If you're familiar with the organization Soul Force, Satyagraha and Gandhi, the power of truth, force of truth, Soul Force in English. It's a national gay organization, gay activist organization, which professes nonviolence. I think they do wonderful work in an office here in New York too. So I think they're a good example of the way the direction needs to go. And things have improved. There's less reason for anger. They certainly improved in society. Some improvement in the church. And it is still unfortunate to see, and I still see it around me, I don't have to point very far, where even today young gay people still, for whatever religious or social reasons, pretend and just try to, enter into regular marriage and regular life rather than face the truth. So even today it's not easy, any of this, but it's important to follow it through. So before I continue the archetypes, some of the more humorous and interesting ones, this real call for any spiritual person, and as I say, with maybe a special challenge and talent, let's say, even, of the gay person, is to see things as they are. It sounds so simple. It's not. Seeing ourselves as we are, how hard that is, but seeing anybody or anything as it is, because we immediately put all these categories over it. And Zen Buddhism is great on this, trying to get past, deconstruct categories, even deconstruct itself as we see it, as we usually conceive of it, which is the whole point. It's just a conception, just a construction. To actually see things as they are. So I'm going to do a little exercise. It comes from a book which I have on the bibliography. Richard Rohr, who's a great friend and mentor of mine, I've been quoting constantly, called The Naked Now, that came out just a few years ago, on learning to see as the mystics see. And this is a great book because it precisely brings us back to what is essential about our tradition, which is our spiritual experience, our experience of God, and the moral, social, individual, personal consequences that come from that. So there's a number of exercises. By the way, it was originally called the Third Eye. But the publisher said, you don't want to call it the Third Eye. I think it's a Hindu book. So learning to see as the mystics see. But the Third Eye, which you do find, he says you can find the expression in Richard St. Victor, and it was a wonderful mystic in the Middle Ages, and I've always loved. Did a paper on it when I was at Fordham. Third eye representing a unified vision, where you're getting over the dichotomy: gay, straight, male, female, dark, light, good, bad, and seeing things as they are, just with a unified vision. Non-dual vision. We're going to be coming back to that theme. Non-duality, which originally is a Hindu term, Advaita, non-dual, but it's kind of the goal of spirituality, because it's the structure of reality, where everything is connected. It's not separate. But that's the idea. So to see things as they are means to see it in its wholeness, in its integrity, in its fullness, of all the possibilities. And as Zen reminds us, it takes decades of just sitting there and looking, even to begin to experience what that really means, the fullness of that. Call it contemplation, because that's what it is. So we're going to do a little contemplative exercise, which he recounts here in Appendix 4, practicing awareness. He says, pick an object, or I brought an object. It's a very simple object, but very evocative, I would say. It's a little mug, a little container, hand-fired pottery, which I got just last year in Kyoto. Kyoto in Japan is known for its pottery, and this is one of the creations of that. And it is what it is. It's hollow, it's simple, it's in your face. It is what it is, like it or not. And why should you have any reaction to it, like or dislike? Don't let your ego get in the way. So that's the point, just to see it. So, can everybody see it? You can do a picture too if you want. I won't leave that. I won't take that away. Or the glass. But there's the object. Now remember what we're doing here. This is an exercise in what we need to do with ourselves, with the world, with God, as our whole spiritual quest, symbolized and initiated by this little exercise, seeing things as they are. And, accepting, welcoming things as they are. So, this is a little exercise. So with your senses, if you could perfectly sit up straight on the floor, attentively, but relaxed, I would recommend. So with your senses, not with your mind. Get the hell out of your mind, because we need to be out of our mind. In a good sense of the word. But yeah, crazy in a sense to trot the spiritual paths at the boundaries on the outskirts, as we were saying up to now. And I love Richard Rohr's phrase, there's no such thing as peace of mind. If you're in your mind, you're not at peace. And if you're at peace, you're not in your mind. Very true. So with your senses, focus on one single object. You can get a paper, whatever. Until you stop fighting it or resisting it with other concern. So stop thinking about where you're going to go to lunch today or where you're going to come on. It's not easy. The concrete is the doorway to the universal, it says. This is the basic principle of the incarnation. It's Duns Scotus' theory of Theotas, meaning this, as it very Zen. That's Duns Scotus from the 14th century. Or even Eckhart. So this should lead to an initial calmness in your body and mind. So as I say, if you can, relax. Your spine should be supporting you, but all the muscles should be relaxed. And just look at it. Kind of open your whole being to it, open your heart to it, open your whole being to your body. Not just looking at it with your eyes and watching us judging it with your mind. Get out of your mind. And just be present to it. If you like, be present to yourself as well as present to the object. It should lead to an initial calmness in your body and mind. So he says you must choose not to judge the object in any way. Don't attach to it, but don't reject it as meaningless. Don't like it or dislike it. Those categories are merely the need of the ego to categorize and control and define itself by preferences. You will thus learn to appreciate and respect things in and for themselves, not because they either profit you or threaten you. Same with people. Start with the object. Appreciate and respect things in and for themselves, and not because they either profit you or threaten you. This should lead to a kind of And then it says, listen to the object. Allow it to speak to you. Yeah, you're not crazy, it can speak to you. Allow a simple dialogue to happen. If it does speak to your heart, speak back to it if you like. Respect and curiosity. Even just with a movement of the heart. You will thus learn to stop objectifying things as merely for your own consumption, or control, or use. You are learning to allow things to take the initiative and speak their truth to you as a receiver instead of a giver. Again, you are learning to allow things to take the initiative and speak their truth to you as a receiver instead of the giver. He finishes by saying, this will lead to the beginnings of love for the object, or event, or whatever. And a sense of benevolence or loving kindness within yourself. Beginnings of love for the object. A sense of loving kindness within yourself. Settle into that for a few moments. Suggests a kind of contented spaciousness and silence will normally ensue. A kind of contented spaciousness and silence. experience this kind of unity with the object, or at least loving oneness. It says this is a form of non-dual consciousness. One more minute and then we'll come back. Suggests that the concrete, loving consciousness of one thing leads to pure consciousness, objectless consciousness of all things, which is the contemplative mind as such. Very Zen, very Christian, very Sufi, whatever you want, it's simply consciousness, objectless consciousness. And by the way, imagine if we applied this to people. You will learn to stop objectifying people as merely for your own consumption, control, or use. You are learning to allow people to take the initiative and speak their truth to you as a receiver instead of the giver. This will lead to the beginnings of love for the person, a sense of loving kindness within yourself. Imagine if we applied that to everybody, to our enemies. Imagine if the enemies applied that to all gay people, all Mexicans, all Muslims, all women, all poor people, all rich people. Just let them speak their truth to you without needing to control or judge or manipulate. So let's be brief. Did anything happen? Was it just crazy? Were you all very uncomfortable? Did you find it transfixing and transformative? Did you find it nothing much? You get it? You not get it? So, any reactions?
I get the concept of what is being said, but really nothing as like, I think that the whole exercise, it's like you have to go through it. For me, I have to go through this many times before I am able to see that and shut off everything and us become one that is speaking to me.
Yeah.
The concept of applying the principle of what you're talking about, I get it. And I think that to me is more important
than the immediate exercise.
Right.
The result.
The result.
Very well said, because as you've discovered, and as probably most of you discovered, if not all of you, it's not easy. It requires a lot of getting used to that frame of mind. Or it's not even a frame of mind, it's beyond the mind. It's going below the mind, deeper into your body, as you said, sense it, below, a bit beyond the mind, and establish that kind of visceral rapport with yourself, and also with reality, and ultimately also with God. Which is what contemplation is. God is not an object of contemplation. If God is an object for you, it's not contemplation yet. Because as he said, ultimately there's an objectless consciousness, which is the contemplative mind. Basically, you're transformed, or you realize your unity with the object, whether it's a pot or Christ. When you realize your unity with and oneness with God. So as I say, it's just one path, the contemplative path, in whatever tradition, even whatever exercise. It's not even, is that a spiritual exercise? Yes, of course. People would call it that, probably. The spiritual just means that you're open, you're receptive to reality as it is, things as they are. Anybody else want to share? Yes.
It struck me as a metaphor for art. I was drawn to its dark interior, the fact that it seemed to be a very restricted space, but at the same time infinite, but anything could be poured into it, and if it couldn't contain it, it certainly would overflow it. That sort of thing.
That's a good example of how, in that part where you're supposed to let the object speak, and you speak back, where you can see, not only in this case, but in the case of just about everything, that everything is metaphorical, everything is a symbol in a sense, standing for, well, the Holy Grail, receiving, God's life and love into a chalice, whether it's our heart or that, or Christ, or the universe, or anything. It's so yes, you're seeing the symbolic character of reality, meaning doesn't mean that they stand for something else, but that it stands for a deeper meaning of what they themselves are, including you. You're deeper than when you begin to see things as they are, you see that everything is that. It's the Holy Grail, literally. And in that sense, this is an easy symbol because it is actually a chalice. Anyone else? A couple of hands up, yeah.
I experienced true stillness.
Yes. So that should be one of the first, can be hopefully one of the first reactions within ourselves, is a quieting, as it said, a quieting of our being, a certain tranquility, which is itself not easy to get to sometimes if we're preoccupied and stuff. It's the beginning of a training to realize that we're not our thoughts. All the writers, mystical writers say that, whether it's John the Cross or Eckhart Tolle, that we have to get beyond the mind, or the Zen masters get beyond, deeper than the mind, to something, to a stillness. That when silence speaks. In the end, it's really only silence that speaks. As John the Cross himself said, God speaks only one word, and He speaks it in silence. And so does the universe, because the universe is the word. It's the word spoken. In the word spoken about, all things are made through the word, etc. So you see the connection to the Gospel of John just by contemplating a thought, with your open connections. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything to say about that experience?
What I did was my mind was drawn to my crutch.
Oh, okay.
And I first, I was looking at it, and I thought, at first I had to settle my mind down. And the first thing I thought was, well, that's interesting, my mind is drawn to this.
Yeah.
And I really had to start using it again recently. And I thought, I cannot, because I think of it as a nuisance and as a crutch.
Right.
Something to have to put up with. And then the longer I looked at it and closed my eyes and sort of thought about just how the image in my mind, heart, and thought of being unified with it.
Yes.
As something that is going to be a part of me.
Right, it is you.
And that sounds odd, but speaking to me, I'm here to be one with you to help. And that's sort of what happened with it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. And whereas it could seem like a burden or an imposition or something that's not you, to realize that, like everything else, it is you. But it may be because it is so intimate to you personally that it's, in that sense, easier to see, easier to experience that. That's a beautiful notion that how the intimacy of life. There's a Zen story, Zen koan. One of the masters was asked by his disciple, what is the Buddha? In other words, what is reality? What's it all about? Just like the Desert Fathers were asked, give me a word of salvation. What's it all about? And the master said one word: intimacy. And this is a story that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, so it's not just like pop psychology, intimacy. This is really what reality is about. He was saying reality is intimacy. That's kind of honesty and seeing oneself and others as they are, where you're connected to yourself intimately, connected to God intimately, connected to others intimately, connected to crutches and pots and chairs and intimately, because we're not separate from intimacy. Ultimately, of course, Jesus says, Father, those you have given me may be with me where I am, that they may be one as we are one, they may be one in us, etc. That kind of unity of all things is the ultimate fulfillment of that. That's an excellent reflection. Anyone else? Yes.
I had a brief moment where I actually saw it or experienced it as what it is, concrete. But I've always had this problem with contemplation, is that most of my mind just wants to doze off.
Yeah.
So, and then when I try to use that, you have a sleepless night or so, and you're trying to get to sleep, it's almost like you're trying to use it, and it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? When you're trying to use spiritual things to even fall asleep, at least it doesn't work for me.
No, spiritual things don't help you just fall asleep. They energize you.
I know.
But the mind, as you say, the ego mind, which is used to being in charge, basically you're its slave, in case you haven't noticed. You're a slave of your ego mind going all the time. Listen, just try listening sometime if you can stand it. As soon as it says, what, nothing's occupying me? Oh, it must be sleep time. I mean, the guy who's my slave on my leash here is not using me, or I'm not using him, so I must be sleep time. So off you go. In fact, you're finally getting awakening, to use again, whether the Buddhists speak about awakening, so does John of the Cross, like a giant awakening within you. When you finally wake up, then you're out of your mind. In all senses of the word. And probably institutionalized, you were crucifying or something. Because you're becoming awake, you're truly awake. Anyone else before we move on? Oh, by the way, did you want to have a break, a bathroom break or something? Just for, please just 5 minutes, and then we'll